Hi there, everyone. Welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new album from And Oceans, As in Gardens, So in Tombs. This is one of those reviews where I found out more about the band as I was listening, so a lot of this is just going to be first impressions. I have gone back a bit and looked into this band's back catalog, which seems fairly convoluted with a mix of styles and personnel changes, which may or may not just be band members changing what moniker they go by when people found out who they actually are. And I say convoluted not necessarily as a bad thing, but it sounds like there's just been quite a lot of artistic shifts and changes over the years for these guys, to the point that I don't really know if there's a better word to describe it. Anyway, I have gone back a bit, checking out some of the older And Oceans material. The last release from these guys, Cosmic World Mother, I thought was pretty solid all the way through. This brand of symphonic black metal is pretty interesting, as they have a tendency to occasionally bring industrial elements into their writing and production, which does poke through from time to time on this new release. The production has a razor-sharp edge to it, which complements the moments where stylistically these tracks share these progressive shifts of heavy industrial segments and ice-cold black metal riffing, like on the track Inverse Magnification Matrix, which I think is one of the best cuts here. Though, like a lot of these symphonic black metal releases, I do pretty consistently enjoy what is here, but there is a tendency to trail off on a lot of riffs, which is actually amplified by the industrial production, which historically is a genre with very consistent tempos and beats. So while there are complementary elements of the two here, they can also at times amplify the other genre's shortcomings, which I would say happens on some of the longer tracks. And that's not to say that there's any particularly short cuts here either, with most of these songs in the 4 to 5 minute range, but past that, things do begin to show the limitations of this blend. But even still, what is here is compelling enough to hold my attention more or less all the way through. The opener, the title track, As in Gardens, So in Tombs, is pretty immediately one of the strongest tracks on the album. I have noticed that of all of the genres, black metal is pretty consistent in leading their albums with very strong tracks. Lots of great leads on this thing. The symphonic elements come to play, but typically are reined in, which is a welcome thing to see in a genre that has a tendency of going way overboard with that kind of thing. This song also displays more of those electronic and industrial blends in the midsection, which are pretty cool. The Collector and His Construct has a killer drum intro, which is pretty much the par for this album, with lots of great drum work all over this thing. The blast beats here are unrelenting. The whole track really feels like it is trying its best to just pummel the listener with borderline death metal guitar work. This is one of the best blends of classic and modern death metal writing that I've heard in a while. It's contemporary without losing the focus of what made the genre so compelling in the first place. Within Fire and Crystal starts to lose me a little bit with these big sweeping parts that start to feel a little too power metal for me, but stuff does tend to work together and flow decently enough here. And with this track being one of the longer songs here, it definitely can be a bit of a hit and miss from moment to moment. There's some solid guitar work, but a lot of these riffs kind of meander, almost like they're lost, and when you think it's going to develop more, it kind of just changes things up completely, which ends up being fine and ends up being welcome, but usually is not what I was hoping for. Carried on Lead Wings has some killer fast and ice-cold staccato guitar work that I think really shines compared to a lot of the other tracks here, though this is one of those black metal tracks where it feels like it could benefit from a bit of a mid-tempo shift. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the fifth track's title, but this is also a really great cut, which is surprising for a track right in the middle of a record. Kudos for keeping up the pace through the midpoint of this album. Cloudheads might be my favorite track of the lot. The rolling tempo just rages on a bloodbath of drum work and fantastic riffs. Big fan of this one for sure. Absolutely love the industrial midsection here. Wine into Water has this very theatrical intro, which is a little bit melodramatic, but it does kind of work. A lot of this track reminds me of a few Oltar songs. Like I said earlier, Inverse Magnification Matrix is one of the best cuts here. Blistering tempo, great use of change-ups, lots of really forward-thinking ideas for black metal. The Earth Canvas is a decent track, but happens to be sandwiched between a couple of songs that are better than this cut, which makes this one stand out a little bit in an unflattering light. It's still a decent track, but decent as opposed to great makes this one's placement in the track listing a bit unfortunate. The final track, Ambivalent God, is really solid. I think while it does suffer from a bit of samey writing, it also does the black metal epic quite well. I'm a big fan of the melodies on this one, really enjoying the drum production, which shines on the fills here. I do also like some of the more doom-influenced segments that the song toys with in the middle of the track. It's not the most overtly Sabbath-sounding stuff ever, but it's definitely got a slow grit that I do like. All in all, I think this is a really good black metal record. I think it does have a few issues in the way it blends some of these subgenres together, but it ends up being negligible because they do a pretty good job on the writing end of things. Also, I hadn't mentioned it before, but the vocal performance on this album is very well done. It's not the most extreme and maybe not the most exceptional vocal work out there, but it is super consistently good the whole way through. I think this album is worth a few listens. There's definitely playlist-worthy tracks in here. Overall, I think As in Gardens, So in Tombs is is a pretty solid 7. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this album in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again. We'll see you on the flip side.